Ladies and gentlemen, we now move to our second session titled Transnational Threats, Connectivity and Economic Security in Nepal-India Relations. This session will explore what are the emerging cross-border challenges, including economic vulnerabilities, strategic infrastructure, regional connectivity, and non-traditional security risks, and how they're shaping Nepal-India cooperation. For this session, we are honored to have as our moderator Mr. Anil Giri, the chief sub-editor at the Kathmandu Post. He's one of Nepal's leading journalists covering diplomacy, geopolitics, and international relations. May I request Mr. Anil Giri to take over the proceedings?
So good morning and welcome to all. And thank you, Nice, for being nice to me and for inviting me and giving me this opportunity to moderate this very intriguing session. We have the first session has set some of the tones of this today's program. Lots of things have been come up in the earlier session also. I have to make some small remarks on this our session, about our session. Basically, we'll focus on the transnational threats, because as we say, we have already discussed about the open border, Nepal-India border, and the challenges. We know what are the challenges over there. Another is economic security and the connectivity, definitely. And in the first session, we have heard about the cliche about Nepal-India, and that Admiral Sir has said that roti beti. But as per my experience, our relations between Nepal and India goes beyond that. That is called roti beti, electricity, connectivity, security, diversity, and many more. Okay, so that is why we have to frame our relations. So we have to come out from the roti beti kind of sentiments, and as I proposed, it should go beyond roti, beti, electricity, connectivity, security, diversity, and many more. And the second thing, I want to clarify one thing. Ambassador Mohan Krishna Seshta has just was asking one concern about extradition treaty. Sir, that story was written by me recently, just 2 days back. And Nepal and India are not going to sign the extradition treaty. Nepal and India are just signing the mutual legal assistance on the criminal matters, because Nepal is in the grey list in the International Financial Task Force. That is why, to come out from the grey list and to have a legal framework on the criminal matters, as we are discussing today about the open border, threat of the open border, and the extradition of the criminals matter. So Nepal and India are looking us on certain date to sign the mutual legal assistance, and and that the discussions are there, but we are not sure that whether this MLA on criminals matter will be signed during this government or after the after the elections. So that is not the extradition treaty. There are certain reservations over extradition treaty between Nepal and India. I think I have to clarify these things, because that story was written by me. That is why it is my also duty to clarify that kind of things also. So that is why I think in my proposition that about roti, beti, electricity, connectivity, security, diversity, and many more, that connects the entire dots of our dimensions and the intricacies of our relations between Nepal and India, from Sagarmala to Sagarmatha. So and there are new threats and new challenges are also coming up in our relations. So recently, while doing more on research, and I was going through the joint statement issued by Nepal and India after 2008 to till the last visit was by Prime Minister Pushpa Kamal Dahal, because Prime Minister Oli couldn't visit India. So during these more than 1 dozen high-level engagements, high-level visits between Nepal and India after 2008. Let's talk about let's have a cut of time for 2008. We have, I went through each and every announcement made after 2008. The propositions made by both sides after 2008. Projects mentioned after 2008 to 2024. So there was, we have touched upon so many issues, over 150 projects, 150, announcements, new announcement, and many more. And if we go through the, status of the implementation between Nepal and India, the pace of implementation is very, very low, probably have not achieved more than 20%. That is the conditions of our bilateral, status of the bilateral relations between Nepal and India. You are free to, this is not, I'm not, telling you any new fact and figure and giving you new evidence. Everyone can go through the joint commissions, joint communique issued after the visits, high-level visits between Nepal and India. And there is another mechanism between Nepal and India that is called joint commission at foreign minister level also. You can also find that. That is why, we have to focus on, implementation of the past agreements and accords and, between Nepal and India. Be it trade, transit, development cooperation, connectivity, and others. Because last couple of years, probably after COVID and probably after Nepal signing I'm not talking about the geopolitics, but after signing the BRI in 2017, again Nepal also signed the MCC with the US. Now India has speed up is status, implementing its status. After that, we have seen lots of India-funded projects across the Nepal-India border. Be it railway, they have conducted the finalized the railway service, railway, cross-border railway, or providing the facilities of the trade and transit and others, like ICP and others. So they are gaining momentum. There are these are some of the good things that and there is another new agreement between Nepal and India on the small grant projects also. Now it has upgraded from 5 crore to 20 crores. So there are some other positive things also, and there are some hiccups also. So in this context, so without giving more details on this kind of things, so we have for the first session have already set the tone for this kind of for this session. So we have a very distinguished guest across from Nepal and India. So all of our 5 panelists are very much known about the issues and issues that we are discussing today. And first of all, I'd like to invite Mr. Alok Bansal from he's executive vice president of India Foundation. So, sir, this is your turn, sir.
Thank you, Chair. I'm indeed grateful to NICE and Pramod Jaiswal for inviting me for this unique conference. And this is probably the first time I'm physically taking part in a NICE event, though I've had the good fortune of speaking in his conference virtually and coming to his office physically and recording a podcast. But this is first time that I'm participating in his event. And I think the topic, talking about security cooperation between India and improving security cooperation between India and Nepal. I think very often people confuse security cooperation with defense cooperation. And to my mind, when citizen of one country sheds blood to defend the integrity of another nation, there cannot be a greater security cooperation or defense cooperation between two countries anywhere in the world. So I think as far as India-Nepal security cooperation is concerned, I think it can't be matched. That's a fact. Having said that, the session that we have to speak is on transnational threats, connectivity, and economic security in India-Nepal relations. That's the thing, and I was told that I should talk about cross-border terrorism. I think India is one of the biggest victims of cross-border terrorism. We are seeing infiltration across the borders, different terrorists coming in from across the globe, indulging in acts of terror. But what is important is that India and Nepal have an open border. And I think a lot of people talked about we need to have better border management. We need to. I know one thing, that no amount of surveillance, no amount of physical security measures can ever seal a border. The world's biggest country and the most powerful country, the United States, has never been able to seal its border with Mexico, despite its all attempts. So it'll never happen. I think we are friendly countries. We need better sharing of communications. We need better intelligence sharing, better surveillance. All these facilities we do need. But surveillance often becomes obtrusive, and it actually creates problems. I think we have thousands of kilometers of border, and I think there are so many places where people crisscross without any checks or balances. But one odd incidence where I think one security personnel may have probably hinder or object becomes a big talking point. And this we need to understand, that when you have such large borders, there'll always be some issues once in a while. Now, when we talk of India, all around India, countries are in turbulence. Now, the turbulence also has a problem. So when there is turbulence, the law and order deteriorates. There are different problems. There are non-state actors which thrive. You can see Myanmar is in the midst of a full-fledged insurgency. We have seen Bangladesh is having elections. Day after, of course, we have seen change of governments all around, including in Nepal, whatever may have been the result. But the manner in which the governments changed could not possibly be called constitutional. By no stretch of imagination, the way the governments were changed or trampled upon were constitutional. Whatever be the reason, whatever may be the outcome, may have been good. Fortunately for Nepal, there is law and order now. I think it was a temporary, but there are countries which continue to simmer, which continues to have turbulence. And these turbulence have created zones of lawlessness. Especially in Myanmar, there are huge territory which are actually held by different warlords. There is a full-fledged insurgency going on. Almost half the territory is not controlled by the government. And consequently, one of the problems that had ebbed to some extent has again resurfaced. That's of narcotics. Today, huge amount of narcotics is provided. The drugs and arms have an old connection. Wherever drugs transit, the illegal arms also transit. And we are seeing it. It's coming actually all over, and this particular region, you are seeing this sort of a movement is going on. So when we have an open border, this becomes a problem. I saw yesterday a huge line at Tribhuvan International Airport, I think scanning the passengers coming for probably gold. You may scan the airport. You can't scan 1,000 kilometers of borders. So we have to have better intelligence sharing, otherwise this is not possible. That we'll have to look at it out. So these are the issues which will affect. In fact, we are seeing, when I talk to UNODC, etc., they say the drugs are actually transit through and through the South Asia. That they are not only coming from the east, they are also coming from the west. Despite Taliban imposing a puritanical version of regime in Afghanistan, the opium continues to grow there. They have curtailed it to some extent, but it is not that they, by no stretch of imagination, have they been able to eradicate. So drugs are transiting, they're flowing through and through. And in India's case, many of India's adversaries have used Nepal as a conduit for indulging in acts which are inimical to India's interests, like counterfeit currency, in fact, which has been a very common thing. It's a known fact. I don't know if you saw the film Dhurandhar. Of course, they dramatize things. But the fact is that counterfeit currencies were being published or printed in Pakistan, And most of them were being smuggled into India through Nepal, the open borders. Of course, one of the operators, I remember, Colonel Imam, I think, disappeared from Nepal. Obviously, he must be indulging in some activity of that sort, who came here and disappeared, or maybe went to some Western world or escaped. But things have been used. So we need to have an intelligence sharing, because I don't think so these activities can be stopped by strengthening the so-called border management. In fact, border management, the so-called border management, only creates more harassment for people, and to some extent creates bad blood. We need to have a better management. We need to have a registration, who's going. We need to be aware. And that can only happen when the two countries have collaboration. There is sharing of intelligence, there is sharing of security agencies. And as the chair brought out, no extradition treaty has been signed, but legal assistance and mechanisms are required, because that's very important. Because since we have a free open border, person committing an act of crime in one country can easily escape into others. There was a time when I was talking to Police Commissioner of Delhi. He said most of the cars that are stolen in Delhi NCR, if you don't recover them in 48 hours or 72 hours, they are already in Nepal, and thereafter you can do nothing about it. So that's the perception, that is it. One thing which we need to understand, any amount of borders can control physical movement of persons, goods, but no border can control the flow of ideas. And this is an age where ideas are actually percolating across international border. And one of them, which the globe is threatened today, is radicalization. We are seeing huge amount of radicalization that is creeping across boundaries. We have seen transnational outfits like Islamic State, Al-Qaeda, indulging in wanton acts of violence across continents. Just on 6th of February, you saw one mosque in Islamabad was blown by a suicide bomber belonging to Islamic State. Islamic State promptly took credit. It's ironical that Pakistan still blames India, that India managed to find a suicide bomber who was willing to go and detonate himself to suit India's requirements. I wish there were such more people like that. But the fact of the matter is, it is an idea. The person who went and blew himself was convinced that he was doing a pious job. Very often we think, no, this can be done. This has been done by that country, we can stop that. But please understand, a radical terrorist or radical terrorism cannot be controlled by bombs and bullets alone. You have to target the brain. And for targeting the brain, you need to have a counter narrative. Most of us don't understand the narrative that is driving the terrorist to go and blow himself up. Because theology is not a subject which IR specialists or security analysts understand. So whatever mind doesn't understand, we think it's useless. So since we don't understand the theology that drives a man to go and blow himself up, we think it is not worth understanding. But you cannot counter it without understanding the theology that drives him. And that theology today is percolating and getting transmitted across borders. There are madaris mushrooming across India-Nepal borders. There's nothing wrong in having religious places of worship, but many of them are propounding ideologies which are extremely dangerous. Because they have an ideology, they believe in certain things, and if we have to counter that, we need to understand that ideology and create a counter narrative. See, we saw the most powerful country in the world occupy Afghanistan for 2 decades. Spent billions of dollars and again returned it back to Taliban. The only lesson that we have learned is that you can never win a battle against an ideological committed force without understanding the ideology.
Sir, 1 minute, sir.
Okay, I'll wind up. I thought you were asking me to move, so I just was winding it up. But that's what is important, I think. And that's what you need to understand. And this is something which threatens both the countries. Please understand, what happens in one country will obviously impact. And then, of course, economic relations, I think the chair has already said. I think when we are together, we all grow. Today, India is the fastest growing large economy in the world. And this has been established. I think every country has realized it. And that's one of the reasons why we have succeeded in signing a large number of FTAs or at least in principle accepting FTAs with EU, New Zealand, UK, US, and other European countries. We have signed that because the whole world realizes. And all the South Asian countries which have actually hitched their wagons to the Indian economy have by and large grown. You should have seen Bangladesh till the tumult was one of the fastest growing economies in South Asia. Their human development index was rising faster than that of India. They had achieved an HDI index better than us. Of course, turbulence and lawlessness helps no one. And that we need to understand. And that's what is happening. So I think the connectivity and the people to people connect, I think that needs to be nurtured. As far as security is concerned, we need to understand that any threat to Nepal's security endangers India's security, and any threat to India's security endangers Nepal's security. So we need to collaborate, cooperate, and share information and intelligence. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now you. So, Major General Binoj Basnyat, so can you, sir, please make some remarks on focusing on how both countries can enhance basically civil military diplomacy, because you come from the military background, civil military diplomatic coordination for disaster response, humanitarian assistance, and also you can also highlight some of the issues of intelligence sharing between Nepal and India. As our former speaker also pointed out about the vulnerability of a Nepal-India border, surveillance system, how poor we are and how strong we are, and local level coordination and safer and a smarter border, because we have 3 tiers kind of mechanism in the border to check the infiltrations and others. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Thank you, NICE, for inviting me, and congratulations to NICE team, Dr. Pramod Jaiswal, the team, for completing your 10 years, and wish you all the very best for the coming years too. So when I was coming here to talk about India-Nepal relations and what it means, I thought of 3 things. One, that would shape the policies and the elections that is coming up, and what that actually translates to the formulation of policies. So I'll just take maybe 2 or 3 minutes on that. And the second one will be on the lessons of the landlocked countries in Europe and how they succeeded, and what it is in South Asia and what it means to Nepal-India relations also. And the last is, as Anilji also brought out, on the security cooperation, which is the spine of the relationship that is predictable, respectful, and resilient, which is the foundation of our strategic stability. So when you talk about the elections, the uprising and the demonstrations in the street was not a surprise, but how it unfolded was a surprise. So the viable option was only elections. Now, the question arises, will this election give or provide the stability, the strategic stability that Nepal needs so that it can foster its relationship with India and with other neighboring countries? So I see 4 strategic narratives, competing narratives. One is emphasizes on the experienced nationalism. Second is the reformist and the youth's leadership. Third is the emerging young political forces. And fourth is the support for the restorations of the monarchy. So together with these narratives, there are 3 messages. One is it's a symbolic of nationalism. Second is institutional reforms. And the third is generational renewal. So there are altogether, I earmark as 6 stakeholders. One is the established political parties, which has 3 sides. One is the established political parties, the newly formed political parties, and the recent political parties. And the other is the political parties that support the monarchy. And the last is the civil society that is bringing out issues of governance and ineffectiveness in the. So the core question is, will the elections and the fault lines really bring about, or will it repeat the cycle again? So my analysis on this is, I think we should be more worried about the post-elections and the acceptance of the election rather than the elections being conducted or not. The election is going to be conducted, but the acceptance by the forces, by the stakeholders, and the narratives that I just told, the acceptance of it and the course. So this will invite a question of, are we doing the right thing? I say no. It is a strategic pause, but not a strategic solution. So the solution is Kathmandu Declaration, where all stakeholders sit down, discuss on institutional capacity, on strategic stability, domestic stability, and international credibility. With that, I enter into my second part. Therefore, of the 41 landlocked countries in the world, geography alone, however, does not determine national destiny. 9 landlocked countries in Europe achieved stability and are on the high economic standards. So during the Cold War, countries such as Switzerland, Austria, Luxembourg followed policies. One, they were embedded in the rules based on regional order. Second, no hostile power rivalries were in their borders. Third, strong institutions and early industrialization. So in short, they were landlocked by geography, but not by politics. So neutrality and predictability, avoiding entanglement in great power rivalries. Second, economic openness, which diversifies their trade and specialization ensures resilience. And institutional strength, which codified laws and agreements insulate from political cycles. So why is it different in South Asia? South Asia sits between rival powers, no strong regional institutions, and security comes before economic stability. So the challenges for Nepal is Nepal relies heavily on India and trade and transit. Attempts to balance India and China have often been reactive rather than strategic. Bhutan aligns closely with India. Afghanistan faces ongoing instability, weak institutions, and domestic politicalizations of foreign policy, exacerbation of vulnerabilities. So what can actually Nepal do? Nepal cannot change its geography, but it can manage it better, especially with India. Geopolitical statements and strategic instability are merely political luxury for the fault lines created by unaccountability and governance ineffectiveness. All well known to the audience present here, and how the 5th March elections will come about. So 3 strategic priorities stand out. 1, stabilize the India-Nepal relationship first. Second, practice disciplined hedging, not symbolic balancing. Third, build institutions before ambitions. Now, the third part is on the security cooperations and the sphere of strategic stability. What I wanted to bring out on this is, we have shared risks environment, whether it is high exposure of natural disasters, open border enables people-to-people movement, rising information, disinformation, increased regional things, and second is the disaster response and humanitarian assistance. So, which happens in an ad hoc basis, helps, but we do not have as an institutional readiness. Third is security cooperation or as a shared responsibility. So we must have a preventive over escalation. So, we have to have smarter borders, not harder borders. So we have to have a local level coordination where success is decided. And my last recommendation would be on Nepal's partnership. So the key recommendations would be strategic resilient, loud politics versus strategic realism, which I mean, I can go into details in the question answer session, but, and the second is institutional diplomacy, which is predictable and should be trust-based. Third is asymmetric realism, like hedge economically, not military, avoid being a platform for any power against another. Four is monetizing geography, multi-level engagements. And the last is shared core interests where cooperation is non-negotiable. So the first priority would be security, second would be strategic stability, and the third would be economic security. This is why I often shape that Nepal-India security ties stands at a crossroad. History anchors them, geopolitics is reshaping. So the benefits for strong Nepal relationship, obviously, you all know, it's reduced vulnerability, it provides you economic growth, it gives you institutional credibility, it's an autonomy preservation, and it also frames the basis of regional reliability. So security cooperation should form the backbone of the relationship, durable enough to withstand the changes in government, electoral cycles, or regional crises. For Nepal, this approach preserves a strategic agency while managing external pressures. For India, it depends on strategic depth and gives a real substance to the first neighborhood policy. Beyond rhetoric, stability is Nepal directly contributes to stability in India. This is not a theoretical claim. It is strategic reality. So the bottom line is, this is not about managing or recurring problems. It is about building a partnership resilient enough to prevent them. So landlocked countries do not succeed because geography ceases to matter, but because politics stops weaponizing. Europe addressed this challenge through institutions. South Asia has yet to do so. So for Nepal, long-term stability and prosperity will not come from choosing sides, but from reducing frictions with India, lowering geopolitical noise, and transforming geography from the vulnerability into a managed constraint, which means strengthen the Nepal-India commitment and ties, in search for new opportunities. Thank you.
So thank you, sir. So thank you for covering the election to security to everything. So this is very nice because we are in the election mode in Nepal. So everybody is very much aligned with the election. And now the turns goes to Mr. Gaurav Saini. So he represents the Council for Strategic and Defense Research in New Delhi. Basically, I would like to ask him some, some questions regarding this topic. Basically, I would like to ask him to focus on the, cross-border criminal activities, human trafficking, illegal trade, counterfeit networks, including cross-border terror attacks like Pahalgam, radicalization, hybrid warfare, and challenges along Nepal-India border. And how can we, Nepal and India, can strengthen the intelligence sharing between the two countries, surveillance systems, and local level coordination, because these are some of the basic features of the Nepal-India security cooperation. And because there is a narrative that the open border always poses security challenges to India, but we are also facing the similar kind of situation in Nepal also. Okay, oftentimes. So this is a two-way kind of traffic, a two-way kind of thing. So I would like to focus on these particular issues, and if anything comes up, you can elaborate. So now it is your turn, sir.
Thank you, Anilji. I told him that I prefer to deliver my remarks from here because I'm an armchair analyst and I'm not very comfortable on the podium. But first of all, thank you so much, NICE, for having me and for organizing this. And kudos to your great journey, Pramod ji, Sumitra ji. It's really fascinating to hear in the morning your remarks on how NICE came up. And I'm really looking forward to this forum and many more such forums. And also perhaps looking forward to hosting you over in Delhi for events like this. A lot has already been said, and also there's very little to say in many ways because we all sort of understand the issues. So I thought maybe I'll focus a little bit more on borders that are new or spaces that are that don't have borders. But anyway, I mean, I will have to sort of, let me start by saying that unlike other borders that India has with its neighbors, the India-Nepal border is very unique, as people have mentioned, deep historical ties, people-to-people ties, trade, connectivity, economy, and all of that. And because of all that, I think this has ensured that the borders have remained open. But I think from the security perspective, it also means that the borders have remained porous, except for, let's say, islands of regulatory mechanisms which forces on both sides have established. And so apart from the land border being a porous border and that leading to several issues which I will cover, I think there is also, this is also an important time to think about the digital space and what kind of borders can be placed there, if at all, if that is even possible. Because generally the digital space sort of defies the logic of borders, and it is an open space. It is also, therefore, porous to a lot of inimical elements who can come in and disrupt a very healthy bilateral relationship. So I'll focus on that as well, and perhaps towards the end offers few recommendations and an overarching thought that I want to leave you all with. So first on the traditional sort of porous border issues, and this is just some points that I think can help frame the discussion going forward. Human trafficking, for example, remains a major problem. Every year estimates say that up to 10,000 Nepalese, mostly women, are trafficked into India for various kinds of forced labor. And there is an estimate by the National Human Rights Commission of Nepal to say that around 1.5 million women are vulnerable in Nepal to this. And surprisingly, almost 50% of that number is under 18, which is a serious issue. Similarly, I think illegal trade in narcotics is a huge problem. And just last year, narcotics up to the volumes of about 40 crore have been caught on the Indian side by the SSB. Now imagine this is a small volume, because remember what I said in the beginning, it's a porous border. Similarly, I think counterfeit networks, especially currency, I think other speakers have already mentioned it, the chair has also referred to it. And here I think generally the perception in India continues to be that it is India that suffers from counterfeit currency, which is absolutely true, which has been historically true. But as early as I think earlier this year, January 2026, in East Champaran, the Bihar police caught Nepalese counterfeit currency, about 25 lakhs, essentially for the upcoming elections. So it's moving in the direction where it becomes a problem for Nepal, and therefore bilateral cooperation is going to be that much more important. Similarly, I think cross-border terrorism and just generally radicalization, the captain has already mentioned how important that issue is. We've been sort of doing some research and finding out verified reports of the increase in numbers of religious institutions in the Terai region on the Indian side as well. And the problem we've seen is that the sources of funds for these institutions, a lot of these institutions are extremely dubious, and they follow a very well-known pattern coming from Middle East, Pakistan, Turkey, etc. And I think it is therefore important for both countries, I think once the elections here are over and the new government comes into play, to realize that ideologies that have ravaged geographies like West Asia, great civilizations have been sort of turned to dust, must not happen in this region. Therefore, I think a better regulatory environment, obviously as democracies, respect for minority rights and religious practices is equally important. But I think it's also important to have enough regulatory mechanisms to ensure that the funds that are coming in are coming in for certain purposes and therefore are being spent for those purposes. Now, obviously I could go on, but I have limited time. Therefore, let me pivot a little bit and give you a picture of the unregulatable, almost borderless space of the digital domain. In your sort of the Gen Z protests, we were tracking several Pakistani handles who were actually the source of disinformation, that this is India's doing, that India is a destabilizer. And then handles that we regularly track who sort of re-up these narratives and tweets were retweeting those. And unfortunately, what happened was that due to a certain degree of irresponsibility from media actors on both sides, and I'm not trying to sort of point any fingers to people in this room, this is a very natural process. Some of these narratives were picked up as facts and reported. And that's how the game of social media and the algorithmic substrate sort of work. It sort of sustains itself. And it was not just about India's role or this country's role or that country's role. You also saw a lot of disinformation regarding, for example, a coup happening in Nepal, regarding, for example, somebody being burnt, a protester's partner being burnt. Similarly, we also saw, similar sort of disinformations that were being put to place. So this is a new challenge that cannot be controlled by borders. And I'll come to more about it in my recommendations. Now, the last sort of digital issue I think I want to cover, which is perhaps not an issue presently, but as policymakers on both sides, we should be very aware of, is there is enough entanglement to a certain degree in our financial system. There are Indian banks that operate here. And all of them depend on digital infrastructure. All of them link back to data centers in India. So I think going forward, and we have a policy of trusted sources, who can you buy equipment from, what equipment you can use. There is a chance in this relationship that in the future, some of those digital infrastructures, and because of sources, get entangled. So the digital infrastructure that Indian banks, let's say, depend on could get entangled on a digital infrastructure present in Nepal from a third country. I think going forward, this may become an issue. It is definitely not an issue at present, and therefore, I think we need to keep an eye out for this. In the interest of time, let me quickly also make 2 or 3 recommendations based on the comments that I've made. I think first, because of the digital domain, I think there's a need to enhance hybrid threat monitoring under the bilateral consultative group on security issues. So what could be done as a suggestion is perhaps a subgroup for joint cyber threat assessments, disinformation tracking, and digital radicalization intelligence exchange could be established. To begin with, it can start looking at what's the nature, what's the degree and depth of these operations, and how exactly do they complement existing problems, traditional problems in security. Second, I think going back to the local level, at the local level, I think the SSB and APF joint patrols and trainings could be enhanced to include cyber awareness. We've seen several in the recent past, several communal disturbances in Nepal, especially because of disinformation, complete disinformation. So I think both forces that work on the local level should also be made aware of how this happens. And perhaps even the community could participate through border district monitoring of online narratives. These are models that have been tried and tested, especially at times, crucial times. Let's say an election is coming up in India, or even the state of Bihar or any of the other states or Nepal. And similarly, if there's a conflict that's ongoing. And finally, I think just a quick recommendation. I know enough has been said on this, but the participation of Nepalese nationals in the Indian Army is not just because of their valor. I think obviously that goes without saying, but also it is an important thread of people-to-people connection and trust. I think trust and security, and therefore perhaps on the Indian side there could be more thought given to certain relaxations. Maybe the quotas could be increased from 20 to 50, 25 to 50%. And I know a lot of people may challenge me on that. But also, for example, the service time could be increased from 4 to 7. But again, what I'm trying to say is that that is an important element of the relationship, and it cannot be left in languish. I think overall, both sides going forward definitely will have to put their energies into risks that emerge from the border's porousness. We need to ensure that the border's porousness does not threaten its openness. And I think a lot of other people have said that. And my final point, this I leave out to you as a thought exercise. But we are all aware that in mountain and hilly regions, bridges need to be upgraded every few generations. Changes in geography, the land shifts, changes in your economic growth, the kind of traffic there is on it. And I think similarly, while I personally absolutely sort of admire the idea of framing and the grammar of roti beti ka rishta, I think we have to be cognizant that this is a country that chose its interim prime minister on discord, that there's a massive demographic change, there's a new generation. And this is a question for me as a researcher. What is the new grammar for this new generation that can be built on as an incentive for a trustworthy relationship with India, and vice versa? Changes are happening in both countries. So in that sense, what is the new roti beti equivalent that we can offer in the coming years in this bilateral relationship? Thank you.
So thank you, sir. That is why I already proposed roti, beti, electricity, connectivity, security, and diversity and many more. So this is the new connotations in our friendship. So as a journalist, and I always feel that, there are more than 3 dozens, bilateral mechanism between Nepal and India. In last 25 years, I have been the journalism, and I have been constantly following and closely following Nepal-India relations. When I was in Delhi, Mr. Pankaj Saran was just not over there. And I was, and then Mr. Ambassador, Mr. Singh is there. So they taught me lots of things, and I know we used to discuss, interact so many things. And now there are, over 3 dozens different mechanisms between Nepal and India, from DM level, district magistrate, to, CDO, our CDOs and the district magistrate from Indian side, up to the joint commission and up to the high level visit of the prime minister and the president. There are so many issues. These are only the security and these are only security and trade, commerce. There are agriculture, there's a tourism, there is there are different mechanism between Nepal and India, trade, commerce. Only in the Ministry of Energy there are 9 different mechanisms are there. As a journalist, it is very difficult for us also to cover all these areas. So that is why Nepal-India relations is so vast. And it is changing also. It is also, the nature of Nepal-India relations is also changing. That is why I prescribe you to go through the, some of the joint communique issued between Nepal and India after 2008 to 2024. How much we have, announced, how much, project we have announced, program we have announced, and what is the status of the implementation of those kind of things. Probably if we would have implemented those things, probably we will discuss in the next level of Nepal-India cooperation. So now we have only one lady, a female panelist over here. So basically, she's tasked to talk about the economic partnership, basically. So our rest of our speakers have spoken about the defense and security cooperation, and some of the our panelists have proposed some resolutions and what can be done in the future, when there will be a new government in Nepal, and what could be the new roadmap between Nepal and India. So now I'd like to highlight some of the issues between Nepal and India on development and economic partnership. So politics continue to overshadow bilateral relationship between Nepal and India. So how can we come up over these kind of things? And it is also responsible to expect this partnership to be deepened without addressing issues like border disputes and others irritants in the bilateral ties. There is a, there was a EPG earlier. Now we don't know what will happen, as there was also talk about the issue of Gurkha soldiers. So these are also there are also pending issues. There is a boundary disputes, and there is a trade, there is a commerce, there is a transit. So many things are there. So to be precise, so let's focus on economic and bilateral cooperation, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Nice, for inviting me. I think 2026, I will keep it short the time is short. I will begin with the rationale that I'm speaking on this topic on. I had a PPT, but it's okay. The thing is that 2026 is the year to speak about India-Nepal bilateral ties, because a very important development which is going to happen in Nepal is graduating to become a developing nation in November 2026. And as it graduates to become a developing nation, it is going to lose a lot of its preferential trade access, grant aids, and it will transition, according to the 16th plan, annual plan, 16th economic plan, 5-year plan, it is going to transition and align with a smooth transition strategy over the next 3 years, and will take the steps to ultimately, transition towards the portfolio of a developing nation. So how India and Nepal kind of come together and, can make, can come together and take the opportunity, and how India is a crucial partner in this entire situation. So I'm going to talk a little about that. So the thing is that to talk about it, we need to focus on what is the present nature of the bilateral tie. The economy is at the center of this India-Nepal bilateral tie, and as India is the nearest and largest trade, investment, and development cooperation partner for Nepal, it also aids it in connectivity, energy, and essential supplies. The relationship altogether can be described as a high-tech, high-connectivity model relationship in 2026. Why high-tech and high connectivity model? High-tech and high connectivity model because it focuses on two important facets of the bilateral ties. One is the Nepal-India digital corridor, and the second is the Nepal-India cross-border energy corridor. The Nepal-India digital corridor is a strategic initiative aimed at aligning Nepal IT decade vision with India's digital public infrastructure. It is the central pillar of national, IT is the central pillar of the national development in the 16th national plan. And it aims to strengthen digital cooperation, AI research, cross-border, fintech, and payment channels. Coming to the Nepal-India cross-border energy relationship, it is divided into three important facets: construction of high-capacity border electricity transmission, development of hydropower projects, and petroleum pipeline. So the first thing that has happened in this entire power energy corridor relationship is that both countries have shifted from low capacity to high capacity 400 kilovolt system to support Nepal's goal of exporting 10,000 megawatts of electricity. Operational is the Dhalkebar Muzaffarpur high capacity link. Under construction is the new Butwal Gorakhpur 400 kV link, which is funded by MCC, as we know, the Dhalkebar Sitamari 400 kV. The newly signed transmission lines are the Dulhabe Purnima and the Lamki Bareli link. Coming to the development of hydropower projects, hydropower project cooperation between India and Nepal has transitioned from high-level treaties to an active construction phase, with the Indian companies holding ownership or survey licenses for projects totaling near 5,000 megawatts. Some of the flagship projects, which follows a benefit-sharing model, is Arun 3, most advanced project, currently 74% complete. It includes a dedicated 400 kV transmission line to India. Nepal will receive 21.9% of the electricity trade, plus 30 units of free free units for the local population. Again, Lower Arun and Arun 4 has the same benefit sharing model. Then the West Seti and the Seti River 6, Fukot Karnali, Upper Karnali, Batan Karnali, they are all these hydropower projects which are on the pipeline. The third and the third part of this entire energy corridor plan is the petroleum partnership that has expanded from the initial Motihari Amleganj line into a nationwide energy corridor. Now the project has entered its second phase, focusing on extending the network to Chitwan and Jhapa. The Motihari Amleganj pipelines, the first transborder petroleum project in South Asia, has been operational for diesel since 2019. Within a short span of being made operational, the pipeline reportedly is able to save Nepal Oil Corporation nearly Nepali rupees 15 crores a month. The pipeline created a record by supplying 100 million liters of diesel to Nepal in a single month in December. So some of these are this Amlegunj Chitwan pipeline, Shiliguri Jhapa is under construction. Both countries are developing a proposed rupees 12 billion LPG pipeline from Motihari to Sarlahi to replace high-cost bullet tankers. These are regulated by different power trade agreements. Since time is short, I'm not getting into the details of all these power trade agreements, but to mention two most important ones that has been recently done is the landmark 25-year long-term power agreement and the trilateral trade tripartite India-Nepal-Bangladesh tripartite power agreement for exporting 40 megawatts of electricity to Bangladesh using Indian transmission infrastructure. Now, coming to apart from these, India has been very, very active in different kinds of giving grants and on different kinds of community projects. They have been there for the for different kinds of humanitarian assistance as first responder, even post-earthquake reconstruction work. And to be honest, in Nepal and India are both parts of different kinds of multilateral forums like BIMSTEC, BBIN, SAARC, and also SAFTA. But given the different kinds of political complexities of the region and different kinds of complexities, our regulatory mechanisms, it is very important for both countries at this crucial juncture. As I said, that 2026 is a very important year for both the countries, as Nepal is graduating to developing as a developing country, and Nepal is one of the nearest and the neighbor for India. So developing a bilateral tie which is thick and which is more growth-oriented, focused, and it is more beneficial for Nepal.
Just 1 minute, ma'am.
So I will just end with some of the takeaways, which is very important. Is that number one is that the transition-aligned assistance, India in its very recent budget has granted kind of 12.8 billion for Nepal, but it could be more, and in future it can focus on this entire transition aligned assistance, and it can also consider expanding the regional power deal which has signed like India, Bangladesh, and Nepal to transform it into a more expansive regional trade deal. And third, and the most important, is that bilateralism is more important for India-Nepal ties over multilateralism, and trade and economy is going to be the most prioritized sector in this bilateral tie, and developing and having focusing on it is a win-win for both countries. Thanks.
So, thank you, ma'am. So actually, it was China first who proposed the trilateral cooperation between Nepal, India, and China. It was the in 2008, after 2008, when Maoist they came in the power, there was a there was a leader, the CPC. His name was Ai Ping. He used to head the international department of the Chinese Communist Party, CPC. Ai Ping. So he first founded the idea of the trilateral cooperation between Nepal, India, and China. Unfortunately, that would not happen. But in our case, with Nepal, India, and Bangladesh, fortunately, this is a sub-regional cooperation between Nepal, India, and Bangladesh. We can call it a trilateral cooperation also. And probably, if the relations between India and Bangladesh will be improved, probably we could have more, we would have more such kind of others sub-regional cooperation between the member states within the SAARC. So that is also a very good development in our region. Now, my friend Anurag Acharya, so you are the last speakers, but you are not free to speak more than 10 minutes again. So I think you are given your topics, so you can talk about the infrastructure development between Nepal and India, and and the status of the projects between Nepal and India also. Thank you, Anurag.
Thank you, Anilji. Thank you, Sumitraji, Pramod, and friends at NICE for bringing together eminent group of scholars and foreign policy experts on both sides. Ladies and gentlemen, and distinguished delegates from India. When you are the last speaker, it's easier because much has already been said. But please allow me to discuss how Nepal and India, despite challenges, some of which have already been discussed, are turning a page in their economic and development partnership by focusing on multiple avenues of connectivity that promises to bring unprecedented benefits to our people. I will quickly discuss not more than 3 avenues where we have made visible progress, and then if time allows, we can discuss some more potential. First is the physical connectivity. Nepal and India share such a robust physical connectivity that we almost tend to take it for granted. The bedrock of this physical connectivity are not the material infrastructures per se, but the history of kinship, cultural ties, and economic interdependence between the population on both sides. However, it is also important to acknowledge some important infrastructure milestones that have recently been achieved in this regard. For many decades, people in Nepal's far west districts had been demanding a better and more accessible connectivity with India. The recently built motorable bridge connecting remote Tarchula district with Pithoragarh on the Indian side will ease connectivity and open new avenues for the remote district. Similarly, a 4-lane bridge over Mahakali and under construction access road linking the Dodhara Chandni dry port with India also opens the scope for cross-border railway connectivity. Once realized, it could unleash great opportunities for people and economy of Nepal's remote far western province. The eastern and southern districts of Nepal already have a good road connectivity. And there are several cross-border railway networks already being planned in this region. The Jayanagar-Kurtha railway is operational and being extended up to Bardivas to converge into the planned east-west railway network in Nepal. The Jogbani-Biratnagar route is also in progress, and there is an ambitious Raksaul-Kathmandu railway project, which is at a DPR stage and promises to be a game changer when it is realized. One of the most significant aspects of Nepal-India relationship is the arrangement of open borders. I mean, more has been said about it, but let me say it has helped to maintain a deep kinship and cultural ties between our people. However, this arrangement has also been exploited by criminal gangs, human traffickers, smugglers, and terror outfits that have targeted both countries. We heard about how counterfeit currency earlier used to affect just India, but now recently it is also beginning to affect Nepal. The recent initiative by the 2 governments to improve border management will help to facilitate safe and legitimate movement of people and goods, while the mutual legal assistance agreement that we discussed earlier will help to combat cross-border criminal movements and activities. The second in this list is trade connectivity that I want to discuss. The trade volume between Nepal and India has recently crossed $8 billion. While it signals deepening of economic ties, this is also an area that begs a close policy attention. In terms of figures, Nepal is among top 20 importers of Indian goods, ranking second only to Bangladesh in South Asia. However, Nepali exports amount to less than $1 billion, which has led to increased deficits in India's favor, and it must be addressed. Belatedly, the two countries have finally begun to address this sensitive issue. A remarkable development in this regard is the opening of India's energy market for Nepal's hydropower exports after years and years of uncertainty. There has also been swift improvement in the cross-border transmission infrastructures lately, and the resulting trade has seen Nepal gradually becoming a net exporter with a surplus value of over $30 million sold to Indian market in the last fiscal year. India is also facilitating a trilateral energy trade, helping Nepal's electricity reach Bangladesh market. But as Anilji said, these are just early days. Besides energy trade, there are also been improvements in cross-border trade with the regular cross-border trade with the construction of integrated checkpoints in 6 places at the Nepal-India borders, which has helped to reduce logistical bottlenecks. India provides duty-free access to most of Nepali goods in its market, offers access to its railways for container shipment, and to its port for third country trade. While these are all important steps in facilitating bilateral trade, more needs to be done to address non-tariff barriers and inconsistent regulatory requirements for Nepali exports. The two countries recently signed an MOU to exchange pre-arrival information on exported goods, aimed at facilitating trade and strengthening customs control between the two countries. This could especially benefit businesses that are exporting highly perishable goods. Besides cross-border trade, India also has expanded the digital real-time cargo tracking system for Nepal-bound shipments from third countries, allowing swift cargo movements through its port and railway routes by simplifying procedures and reducing transit time. Now, this brings me to the third avenue of Nepal-India connectivity, which is the digital connectivity. In 2023, the two countries signed an MOU for cross-border digital payment, which has since eased digital transactions for business people, students and tourists from both countries. Most importantly, it has removed the constraint for individual travelers and families to carry a large stash of cash while traveling across the borders for health treatment, religious purposes, or for tourism. Nepalis studying and working in India can now open a bank account in India using the Nepal government issued documents and also access Indian payment gateway in Nepal for digital transactions and withdrawals. Nepali workers can also transfer their savings to their family banking accounts in Nepal using the Indian banking apps that offer remittance facility. Unfortunately, the digital payment for Nepalis traveling to India is still in progress and not fully functional for several technical regions, including those around cybersecurity, which will ease with better digital and cybersecurity arrangements. Beyond these avenues where we have made much progress, there are also a lot happening in the background with two countries working to unlock new avenues. Like my earlier speaker said, we need new avenues that can connect a new generation of population on both sides. Let me also discuss 3 of them briefly. The first is the tech integration. Nepal and India are strengthening their technology partnership, focusing on digital infrastructure, AI, fintech, and startup collaborations. Given Nepal's expanding youth population and tech industry, India's growing interest in Nepali startups is both obvious and exciting. It means access for Nepali startups in the Indian market, creating more jobs and opening avenues for drawing in large investments. The key initiative in this regard is the India-Nepal Startup Partnership Network at IIT Madras, which recently saw 24 Nepali startups receive training and investment offers, driving innovations in AI, health, and clean tech.
Anuragji, 1 minute.
At least 9 participating startups have now secured exclusive investments and incubation offers from leading Indian companies. These are very exciting developments. The next in this list is religious and cultural tourism. Now we don't need to say much about this because every year thousands of domestic and international travelers from both countries visit holy sites on either sides. I mean, like there are sites like Varanasi, Sarnath, Bodh Gaya, Ayodhya, Jagannath Puri on the Indian side, whereas in Nepal there are Pashupatinath, Muktinath, Lumbini, and other religious sites which invite a lot of Indian tourists, especially during the festival times of Mahasivaratri, Buddha Purnima, and so on. But lately, Nepali border towns like Bitamot, Biratnagar, Birganj, Janakpur are also becoming a popular destinations for Indian weddings and cultural events. While Kathmandu, Pokhara, and Chitwan continue to grow as a destination for regional conferences and family retreats. With improved connectivity and digital integration, tourism holds immense potential in these terms. The final potential that I want to discuss is around sports. The most underexplored avenues between the India-Nepal ties that could bring mutual benefits to both countries. Cricket in particular has a large fan base in both the countries. Nepalis and Indians travel to various destinations in South Asia and beyond to watch their teams play. They also follow competitive domestic leagues, which has helped to create professional environment for games development and bring in private investments. While Indian Premier League, a flagship T20 event, has achieved a global recognition, its Nepali franchise is slowly taking initial but promising steps. With investments in new infrastructure, including state-of-art stadiums, sport academies, and other technical areas, sports can unlock a new avenue for cross-border connectivity. It is likely that, recently, India and Sri Lanka are, currently India and Sri Lanka are co-hosting T20 World Cup. It is likely that Nepal could co-host an ICC event with India sometime not in so distant future. Let us not forget these achievements are not only to the credit of two governments, but a collective effort of stakeholders on both sides, think tanks included, who have pushed their governments to look beyond our differences. I hope today's gathering will be another step taken in that direction. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you. So we are running out of time. Definitely your presentation was quite fascinating. So besides conventional and the traditional kind of assistance that India has been providing to Nepal, now India has started, providing the, new kind of, cooperation and partnership with Nepal, that is AI and startup. That is, every other day in Kathmandu, you have seen the lots of startup things are going on. Discussions are taking place on the AI. How can the both countries can cooperate in the areas of AI and new technology and the startup also. That is a new phenomena in Nepal-India relations. Besides the conventional and traditional kind of cooperation. Now the floor is open. So you are. I have already seen one gentleman has raised the hand. Please identify yourself and be precise. Your questions should not beyond 1 minute. Should precise to whom you are asking. Okay. So please go on, sir.
Good afternoon. Thank you for your comprehensive deliberations, Dr. Alok Bansal. So my queries goes to him as he emphasized more on the need for intelligence sharing while we talk on transnational threats, connectivity and economic security in Nepal-India relations is concerned. So Dr. Bansal, so as we talk about interlinked security complex of India and Nepal and makes an open border both a civilizational strength and a modern security vulnerability. That is what we consider. And given the rise in sophisticated transnational threats ranging from cyber-enabled threats to third country infiltration, so do you think that it is necessary for Nepal and India to establish a joint intelligence mechanism to ensure border governance and facilitating legitimate movement rather than just border policing, as it involves the collection of the information, recording of the information, evaluation of the information, analysis of the information, sharing, and making a strategy, developing a strategy, and translate all these into action to ensure the effective border governance. Thank you.
Thank you. I am Vijay Raj Tandukar from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, South Asia Division. My question is to Gaurav. You just touched it briefly regarding some digital sovereignty issues. So as we are moving towards, like deeper integration in the digital public infrastructures, what kind of issues may arise regarding the digital sovereignties, and how should we preempt the complications that may arise regarding the digital sovereignty issues in the future? Thank you.
Mohan sir.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I am retired Brigadier General Dharma Bania from Nepal. My concerns, my concerns are again on border management between Nepal and India. We know Nepal and India enjoy a very special and unique relationship that has been further justified by the presence of open Indo-Nepal international border. We are like brothers of a same family. India is supporting us in several sectors for our development and prosperity. We are grateful to India for this. We enjoy multidimensional connectivity between us. But there exist some problems between Indo-Nepal relationship. Nepali public are not happy with the border incursion from Indian side towards Nepal along the Indo-Nepal border. We can see in several books and journals that in 71 locations, India has unofficially occupied almost 61,000 hectares of Nepalese territory.
Sir, what is your question, sir? Please. Sir, please. What is your question? We are running out of time, sir.
I'm coming to the question. Hold on. Nepal has forwarded several diplomatic notes to India. We know India is very busy along this western border, northeast, northwestern borders, also for the peace and security in the Indo-Pacific region. And we feel that India has the greater responsibility because of its central location in South Asia, its economic and military potential. But at the same time, it should not overlook its problems with smaller neighbors like Nepal. If there exists problems between our relations, then a complete security and economic cooperation is hardly possible to achieve. Although we are not the authorized persons to speak about it, there exist several contingencies to resolve our problems between two countries. Now, my question is that, my question goes to Indian delegation that whether there exists a mutually acceptable diplomatic solution to resolve the existing Indo-Nepal border problems on win-win basis. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Hello all, namaste to the esteemed chair. I'm Durlav Ray Chaudhary. I'm actually an Indian, but have been in Nepal for quite a time, working at various capacities in different projects like carbon neutralization and capacity building, and also myself being like the executive, like an editor of a news portal. My question to the esteemed chair would be specifically pinpointing to Arun 3, but covering a human capacity building like an aspect which is linked with security. According to the metrics, we have around 1,200 Indian professionals working on the project. But the Nepalese, the participation in the core technical, the roles remains very limited. So how can these joint hydropower, projects more deliberately use the human capacity building concept? In this context, how can structured skill transfer and management be aligned with platforms like bilateral frameworks like the ITEC to strengthen Nepal's technical self-reliance and maybe somehow reduce the metrics of brain drain, which I would say is like a pandemic that this country is suffering at the moment.
So to whom your question is, sir?
My question in particularly would be to Dr. Roy, because she spoke about the Arun 3 in particular, but it would be also just a policy question to the entire chair.
Okay, sir. So could you, briefly, again,
how can we, from the Indian side or from the Nepalese side, we can integrate this capacity building, these platforms like ITEC and all, and use them for Nepal, for Nepal's growth. That's my question.
Now we have, we have to move. There is a, distinguished, table is there over there. Former ambassador, former foreign secretary, ambassador, everyone is there. Our power center is there. Please,
Thank you, Chair. My name is Madhu Acharya. It's not much of a question, but I thought I should share one little experience and, relating from the discussion from the two panels. In the earlier panel, it was said that we have virtual access to the sea. On that regard, I think, just to expand that, I was in India recently. If you can do three things to increase seamless connectivity, three things that I felt personally as a traveler, not as an official. First thing is, when getting to India, if you can get a SIM card, a telephone, it's just simple, basic as that, SIM card. Second thing is, if your bank QR can work, your card works, but bank everywhere there is cashless, it doesn't work. Third thing is, if you can drive your vehicle into India over each other. So these are the three things that are hampering seamless connectivity. That is my observation. Why could not we do these things to anyone?
So thank you, sir. You are, so you can give this suggestion in the Twitter also.
Good afternoon to everybody in the hall. My name is Mohan Krishna Shrestha. I'm the founder president of Center for Diplomacy and Development. It's a diplomatic think tank we established in 2018. Thanks and appreciation to all the panelists for their excellent presentations. But I'm going to ask or share some thoughts about Nepal's relation with Dr. Roy, Angana Roy. Because just 5 days ago, our center hosted a talk program on the eve of 8th anniversary. It was about Nepal's LDC graduation. We had distinguished presenter, Mr. Ambassador Gyanchandra Acharya, who was a leading expert on the field. And also we had the presence of Vice Chairman of the Planning Commission. Now thing is that just after 9 months, Nepal will be graduated from LDC status. There has been a lot of apprehensions of that, how many challenges we have to face after this LAC graduation. And we argued that whatever be the challenges, but this is the best time for Nepal to abandon the stigma of being poor and level up. So that was our final judgment from our side. My question to you, Dr. Roy, as a roti beti sambandha, connectivity, electricity, whatever has been explained by Anilji, how the government of India is taking this issue? When we have problems, government of India is coming to assist us or not? Because our trade imbalance is so large, so huge every year. So how it will be handled by your government? If you have an idea, just share with this all. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other? The last question, I think.
Good morning. My name is Nutan. I have a questions for the star sitting in the middle. I think Dr. Alok, as you mentioned about the radicalization and extremism, I think this problem is not only in South Asia, it's throughout the world. So I just wanted to know how can we respect people with different ideology and combating extremism at the same time, because we all know we live in a democratic society and we should respect each other's views. But at the same time, ideology pass on to generation and generation, and it moves, it does not need any border. So in that context, as a democratic country, how can we balance between these two aspects? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you all distinguished for your insightful remarks. My name is Menka Pachai. My question is, when Nepal is in a political crisis, many Nepalese generally assume that there has been external interference. In that situation, India's name is come front line. So, as a diplomat and as a policy researcher, what do you think from your perspective? My question is to Dr. Sanjeev, sir. Thank you. Binoj, sir. Thank you.
So thank you. Now we have come to the end of this program. So I request all the respected panelists to answer the questions raised by our friends from the audience. So I think we are running out of time. So you will take maximum limited time to answer these questions. So I think there is no question to Anurag ji. Yeah. Okay. Then, so sir, please go on. You should start, sir.
Oh, Achha, so I'll just start. I think as far as border is concerned, I must admit there are some reverberations, so you are not able to hear very clearly what the audience is often asking. But what I understood was that there were some questions regarding joint management. I do agree. I feel a joint management of border is a good proposition. I think, but that can only come about if we actually have better cooperation, not the way General Saab said, problems of territorial disputes. I think there have been differences as far as territory is concerned for a certain period of time. We can go into history. History shows you both sides of the things. These are issues which are in different shades of gray, not in black and white. Unfortunately, when the resolution was being done, and again, firstly, let me be very clear, I am speaking for myself. I have not been part of any government for 12 years, and I definitely do not represent the views of India Foundation or any organization with which I am associated. So my pure view is that when the negotiations were going on, one particular government actually came up with things which has made it extremely difficult and intractable problem to resolve. So be that as it may be, I think joint management of borders is a definite positive. We should consider it. And I think it would resolve, because if you have the two forces together and managing the border and sharing data, the questions or comments that keep coming that SSB did this or this chap did that would not happen, because then you'll have people from both sides. So it's a good proposition where we can share information with each other while allowing completely free movement of persons. And that's where associated with this, talked about three things: SIM, money, and I think the third thing was, I forgot, what was it? Driving. As far as SIM card is concerned, I agree. It's quite difficult in India because of various security reasons. Now, getting a SIM card is difficult. You do get a free Wi-Fi on arrival in Indian airports. I think that's not an issue. I think can set up some system by which passport copy. Okay. So you can have a passport scan. I think it's a worthwhile thing. As far as driving is concerned, I think the problem is more here, because I think the duties and the charges for cars to be driven to Nepal are so exorbitantly. I remember my brother-in-law was in Pokhara for a few years, and they could never bring their car. I think they were happier using the cars or taxis from here. So it's that expensive, I think, as far as that is concerned. Banking system, yes, we do need greater integration, and I think work is in progress. I think it is for the two governments and the central banks to decide. As far as radicalization is concerned, please understand, we, as any democratic pluralistic entity, we recommend and accommodate every ideology. No religion is a pariah. We have accommodation. We are both secular republics now, and we accommodate each and every person's faith. But an ideology or a jihadi terrorism where somebody talks about killing others cannot be perpetuated. If there is an ideology which says that, okay, anybody who doesn't agree with me should be eliminated, then you have to deal with it. And you have to deal with it not by bombs and bullets alone, as many in the security arena feel. You cannot deal with such ideologies just by bombs and bullets. You have to first understand that ideology. What does he say? What does it say? Create a counter narrative so that the potential targets can be countered. And in our cultural space, there are very clear ways of dealing with any adversary. Sam, Dam, Dand, Bhed. Advise somebody, incentivize change, and if incentivization is not possible, punish it. And then, of course, if that also not, divide it. Please understand, more radical an ideology, lesser is the tolerance for ambiguity. All radical ideologies have very little tolerance for ambiguity. And as a result, you'll find every radical ideology splinters very fast. Be it Marxism, be it radical jihadism, you'll find the difference between IS and Al-Qaeda is hardly any. Or difference between Gang of Four or Lin Biao or Maoist traditional thought was very, very limited. Trotsky and Stalin, you may differ. Bukharin, Yaniev, Kamenev, the differences, ideological differences were very small. But radical ideologies, even slight deviation from ideology creates differences. So Sam, Dam, Dand, Bhed is the solution. But for anything, you have to first understand the ideology. Trying to eradicate or fight an ideology without understanding is a failure right from the beginning.
Sir, you answer?
Sure. I think, thank you for the question. Just one question on digital sovereignty, right? So I think 2-3 parts there. One is obviously there's a learning curve that both our countries are parallelly going through. And we could claim that perhaps India is slightly ahead on that in terms of having a law, in terms of having that conversation. And now a very forward-looking policy when it comes to data localization. So if you look at the latest budget, there is almost like some media people have called it a tax-free holiday for companies who want to come in and establish data centers. So if you look into that future, what you realize is that there will come a point where a lot of foreign companies, intermediaries that are servicing data needs, cloud needs in Nepal are ultimately going to do that not from data centers in the US, but data centers in India. So that will come up with its own complexities, and but there are also opportunities in many ways because those data centers need power, and it is something that is an integral part of our relationship. So a kind of a conversation could be had in that direction. But on the learning curve, I read that recently Nepal Telecom, for example, cancelled open bid, and a lot of people were not happy about that. And if you dug deeper, you realize that there were two, Huawei and Whale Cloud, and essentially it was the same company. And the concern there was of monopoly. So I think from Nepalese perspective, that question and that concern will remain, and it will be equally applicable to Indian companies as well as Chinese companies. And I, as an Indian, cannot answer that question for you. But there are simpler problems as well. In 2024, for example, early 2024, there were reports of several data outages. And that turned out to be simply because the Nepalese sort of operators had not paid bills on time to their Indian counterparts. So there are several layers here. I think the most dangerous one that I tried to sort of indicate or point to is the risk of entanglement between two different digital infrastructure setups from different sources. And that is more likely than we imagine it to be. It has happened in other cases. Just to give you a small example, a Tesla car always reports back to base. And if it operates in a country where it is also interacting with a third-party telecommunication network, it collects data from that network and exchanges data. And some of these vulnerabilities have been used. I think we have very many cases, most recently being Israel operations with Hamas, where you can, if you wanted to, pollute data, if you wanted to insert some inimical sort of programs, etc., that could be done. But I'm not saying that is happening, but it is a point of concern. It will only grow as more of our financial systems, especially digital financial systems, get integrated. I mean, I was quite surprised that I could pay using Beam. I had read about it, but just to do it also brought in the concern that, okay, I'm in another country and I'm able to do this, but as a security analyst, you also think, what else can somebody do to me? So I'm coming from that point. Thanks.
Question to me was on the foreign interference. To be short, I think when you are talking about being accountable and when you are ineffective, these tendencies of foreign hands being played in governance system rises a lot in Nepal. So I had written a piece, I think, on khabarhub.com on foreign interference or internal political failures. So when you have internal political failures, there is no denial that interests prevail. India has certain interests. China has certain interests. The rivalries have certain connotations of how things should work around. But I think as long as stability is performed here and we find a common stance on our policies, whether we state ourselves as buffer zones or sphere of influence or as a periphery state. So I think we have to look into more a united, democratic, forward-looking issues that we have than blaming it as a political comfort or a political cushion. There was a lot of, let me just raise two things. There was a lot of things about the border management. I had raised two issues on my presentation. One was the smarter border, not hard borders. And the other one is local level coordination, where success is decided. So I think these are two things we really have to look into, which means like when you talk about the border, I think it is, a safer border does not mean closed borders for Nepal-India. I think it is, we have to have a compatible surveillance systems at crossings and vulnerable stretches. We have to integrate customs, migrations and law enforcement data to flag anomalies. And we have to use technology like drones for air monitoring and emphasis on facilitation, quick border procedures rather than making it a hard one. And if we do this in the local level, I think Kathmandu and Delhi will be very happy to see that things are happening correctly. And the other thing, when we were talking about a relationship, I think one of the things that I would like to raise now is about what India's first neighborhood policy means. So, well, whether India is engaged outside Brussels or Beijing or Moscow or Washington, I think there is no matter how, I think Nepal must never slip from New Delhi's strategic center. How that is, I brought out in my last statement. We must consolidate our commitments, our obligations, strengthen it, and look for new opportunities. And the 4 pillars I would suggest is political continuity, which means politics in a development. Second is economic integration. Third is defense and security diplomacy as a priority. And the last is cultural diplomacy. Thank you.
So, ma'am, please go on.
Sir, if I have heard you right, I think that, yes, the precedent of India-Nepal bilateral ties and the quantum of it, what has already happened and the trajectory itself is the testimony of how much India cares for its closest neighbor, which is Nepal. So definitely, I think that Nepal graduating to the developing country category, it brings on a lot of challenges for Nepal, and India recognizes that. And the first step in January, as you saw, that that it granted like 12.8 billion for as a development assistance. And not only that, also if you follow the India-EU multilateral, so there is a clause in that multilateral which allows India and EU to scale up its investments in third countries, for development assistance. So there is a lot of things that India, is already doing, and its political willingness, and it has taken a lot of steps to ease a lot of bottlenecks, a lot of impediments that were in the way of this trade and transit connectivity, and it is relentlessly pursuing a lot of policies which can ease it properly, like for infrastructure, whether it's building cross-border transmission lines, whether it is. Definitely, there is a lot to figure out as this smooth transition strategy has to be pursued November onwards, and there are 3 years' time. And so I think that India will be a very crucial partner for Nepal in this entire transition, and India will definitely make it sure that it actually play a very important role for that. And for this, if I have heard you right, you are talking about how India can help in this capacity enhancement, and how can it intellectually come together. I think that this was one of this very important aspect that I specially emphasized on high-tech, high connectivity model, and a very important aspect beyond, other than the power cooperation and the energy corridor is the Nepal-India IT corridor. And there is a lot of these knowledge parks and already, and and apart from that, if you have also followed the details of the India's development cooperation with Nepal, there is actually India has granted a lot of assistance, and it has also pursued relentlessly it has taken a lot of steps so that there can be education cooperation. There is this talent exchange. Now there is this scope of AI research. There is this scope of startup innovation, which if you have followed iSpan. So a lot of things can be done and is already in the pipeline under these things. And it's not that it is happening now. It has been happening for a long time, which is, scaling back. Like, if you back in time from 1950, yes, I mean, there were a lot of these, aspects in the complexities in which always both of them came together and they have overcome those hiccups, those bottlenecks, and they are moving towards it. There is a lot of that happening already. So thank you.
Anurag ji.
If I understood correctly, somebody had a question on border disputes. I think as complex as border disputes between the two countries are, and in Nepal and India are not unique to that, the solution, if we look around the world, is not so complex. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. No two countries which have had border disputes have been able to resolve it without two governments having sufficient confidence in talking with each other, engaging with each other. And in Nepal, India's case, we must remember that we've just come out of at least a decade of very turbulent relations. And we are just, working towards steadying this relationship through, engagement across multiple avenues, some of which I just discussed. So I think we have to appreciate the fact that two countries have been able to work despite these differences to, work on avenues where they can strengthen ties and then, create that room for confidence where then, later probably in future you can deal with more tricky issues. If you straight away dive into tricky issues, I don't think you are going to get anywhere. So I think for now we need to continue building that confidence by focusing on issues that unite us, issues that are of mutual interdependence, and see and wait for that opportunity where the two governments are in a sufficient comfortable position to discuss these tricky issues, which I'm sure are not insurmountable, but we have to wait for the right time, I guess. Thank you.
So we have come to the end of this session. So hopefully we are in the transition. So probably there will be new government after the new elections. So new government will take up all these issues. So, but the thing is that this kind of track to diplomacy, this kind of interaction between Nepal and India should happen frequently. And this kind of not only track to diplomacy, the diplomacy between the government side, the government officials, track 1, track 2, there should be a discussion among the political leaders, political parties, media, think tanks, government leaders and others. So that only make our relations healthy, robust, and and give a new inputs in our relations. So thank you for listening this event. There is one at my final note, I would like to add one thing. There is one Nepali song, there is one Nepali song. India for us is like, Maya Baiguni, Navai Nauni. This is what India is for us. Okay. But one interesting thing, I would like to add here. Last year, I went to Delhi in the Rayajana dialogue, to take part in the Rayajana dialogue. I met one Indian strategic thinker. And we were over the coffee in the hotel. And please ignore the anti-feminist, connotation in my remarks, because this is not my word, this is his remarks. And we were chatting over the coffee in the hotel lobby. And we keep on, he was very much inquisitive about the Nepal-China relations. And after listening, after having conversation over 1 hour, finally he said, Anil, look, India for Nepal, he said, Anil, look, for Nepal, India is like a wife and China is like a girlfriend. And I said, what? No. Anyhow, you have to live with your wife. Girlfriend is a moment of time, So that is why you have to live with India. And I said, should I quote you? He said, no. How can I quote you these kind of things? But this is the reality, So, having said this, Maya Baiguni, so Navai Nauni. So this is the fundamental reality between the Nepal and India. And this is the very cornerstone of our relationship. So, saying this, I would like to close this session here. And I think you all have the launch coupon in your pocket. And, okay, sure.
I just wanted to say, since he said, I must tell you, one former Prime Minister of Nepal mentioned the same thing. He told me that irrespective of what we may say, India for us is irreplaceable. China is a good bargaining chip, but Nepal's historical, geographical and cultural linkages with, and someone who took a very hard stance against India, so I can't possibly name it, but I'm telling you a former Prime Minister of Nepal did say this in one-to-one talk.
So thank you, sir. It must be Prachanda, I guess. So thank you very much. So thank you very much. Thank you, Nice, for being nice to us, having, crossing over 20 minutes, this session. Thank you.